Lieutenant Commander Arlo Hayes peered over the edge of the shimmering chasm, the wind ripping at his exosuit's lightweight ceramide plates. Around him, the alien world of Kithria III stretched in jagged crimson plains, punctuated by the iridescent glow of the luminous rift, a deep fissure in the crust with walls of opalescent crystal. Aurora-like ribbons of violet and teal danced overhead, their colors refracting through the drifting dust to cast an otherworldly glow that made even the starkest rock formation seem strangely beautiful. His helmet's HUD crackled as seismic sensors picked up low-frequency vibrations, tremors that hinted at something massive stirring below. The official mission briefing had been brief and skeptical. Ancient life forms or legends, no proof of dragons outside hollow archives. Yet satellite imagery had shown a colossal heat signature trapped deep within a localized gravimetric anomaly, and as the vessel Astraeus's lead explorer, Arlo had volunteered to investigate. He checked his gear. Graviton cutter strapped to his right thigh, a mesh of microtethers coiled at his belt, a single photon flare pistol holstered on his left. He activated the audio log. Subject, Ether, time, 0742, local. Commencing descent. Unfurling a coil of carbon nanotube rope, Arlo edged backward and let himself slide down into the rift. Each quarter turn of the rope sent him farther into darkness until the surface light faded, leaving only the thin blue glow of his suit's external lamps cutting through the shadows. The walls of the rift became smooth, almost slick, with layers of crystallized silica that hummed softly under his boots. The further he descended, the stronger the vibrations grew, thudding through his boots and reverberating in his chest. Below him, a cavern opened wide enough to swallow a cruiser. In its center lay the dragon. It was impossibly large, its sinuous body rivaling the length of the Astraeus docked above, and its scales gleamed like beaten bronze, each plate inscribed with twisting bioluminescent glyphs. What held it in place was no ordinary chain. Strands of glowing energy, metallic yet fluid, coiled around its wings, binding them against the cavern ceiling, wrapping its forelimbs, and looping again like a web across its sinuous neck. Every time the dragon shifted, sparks rained down and the cavern's crystal face fractured with tiny pops. Arlo's exhale steamed in his visor as he activated his cutter. The twin prongs unfolded with a hiss, white-hot tendrils dancing between them. He climbed down a few more meters to the cavern floor, moving deliberately to avoid alerting the creature. Around him the air was thin and cold, his suit compensated with microheaters along the spine. He tapped a command on his glove. Graviton field isolation, engaged. The suit's thrusters hummed as they stabilized him against the cavern's microquakes. The dragon's golden eyes cracked open, revealing depths that spoke of millennia. It bared teeth that could cleave a starship's hull. Its low rumble was a vibration in the air, a sound that pushed Arlo's suit's audio dampeners to the limit. Yet, in that rumble, he heard something more than rage, a plea, ancient and resonant. He forced himself to ignore the instinct to back away. Taking a steadying breath, he approached the nearest strand. The heat from his cutter tinged the visor's edge red. With a decisive forward motion, he plunged the cutter through the energy strand. The effect was immediate, an explosion of light, and force that sent shards of crystallized silica rattling down the cavern walls. The dragon's bellow reverberated through Arlo's bones, and he felt the soft burn of plasma sparks on the side of his suit. His HUD flickered warnings, but he pressed on, cutting strand after strand, each release accompanied by a flaring ache in the dragon's eyes. As the final chain collapsed in a shower of iridescent sparks, the dragon flexed its enormous wings. Drifting rocks, once held staunchly in place, floated free in the suddenly weightless field. A rush of displaced air nearly sent Arlo tumbling backwards. He planted his boots and slowly raised a gloved hand. "Easy," he murmured, though the translation synth in his helmet rendered it as a low, humming growl in the dragon's frequency range. The creature's head dipped, nostrils flaring as it took in the unfamiliar scent of humanity. Its bioluminescent markings pulsed, green, then teal, then violet, like a breathing neon tapestry along its neck. Arlo's heart pounded. He felt as small as an insect before a living monument. But within that monument's gaze, he sensed an intelligence, a consciousness beyond fear or fury. He would not betray the trust he'd earned with his blade. For a long moment, man and dragon stood together in the echoing cavern, one newly freed, the other forever changed. Above them, the luminous rift's light cascaded down in spectral rainbows. And somewhere deep in the chasm, ancient runes carved by unknown hands thrummed, as if awakened by the bond formed in that silent, electric moment. Lieutenant Commander, Arlo Hayes recorded one final note. The legends were true. Ether lives, and I have a promise to keep. He flared a single photon flare at the cavern's mouth, signaling his retrieval team. But as the dragon spread its vast wings in readiness to rise, Arlo knew this rescue was only the beginning of a story that would reshape the fate of two species, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The sterile hum of the Astraeus' containment bay was a stark contrast to the primal thunder of Ether's captive cavern. Fluorescent panels bathed the chamber in pale white light, reflecting off the reinforced alloy walls and the web of phased plasma grids that locked the dragon in place. Scientists in sleek lab jackets hovered at control consoles, their hollow screens scrolling with biometric readouts, heart rate, thermal flux, scale regeneration metrics, data streams that promised breakthroughs in medicine, energy, even ecological terraforming. Lieutenant Commander Arlo Hayes stood off to one side, arms crossed over his armored chest plate, watching Ether's massive form tense against its bonds. The dragon's wings beat weakly, plasma coils wrapped around each bone like razor wire, suppressing any attempt at flight. Its bioluminescent glyphs pulsed in slow waves, shifting from deep indigo to mournful lavender. Every pulse seemed a silent plea for release. Dr. Mira Solen, the Astraeus' lead xenobiologist, glanced up from her console. "Remarkable," she whispered, eyes gleaming. "Ether's scales are actively adapting to the plasma field. If we can harness that regeneration—" Arlo raised a hand. "With all due respect, Doctor, I rescued that creature. It's no lab rat." His voice carried the weight of command, and the room fell silent. Even the low hiss of containment fields seemed to pause. Dr. Solen offered a tight smile. "Of course, Lieutenant, but think of what its cells could do. Heal wounds in seconds, purify water, even stabilize tectonic plates on volatile worlds." Arlo's jaw clenched. He'd heard the promises before. He'd seen good intentions warp into exploitation. "If we force-feed experiments, I'll hold you personally accountable," he said, voice cold. Before tension could escalate, alarms shrieked through the bay. Red strobes flashed. A voice crackled over the comms. "Lieutenant Hayes, we've got movement at the drop pad. Multiple heat signatures, large, fast, approaching at high speed." Arlo sprinted toward the viewport. Beyond the thick armor glass, the barren planet's scarlet plains stretched out, broken only by the Astraeus' landing struts. Dozens of shapes tore across the dunes, paws kicking up plumes of crimson dust. They were unmistakable, high-wired, frames, elongated muzzles trailing electrified fur. Nebula Wolves Obsidian, the alpha female, rode at the pack's head, her obsidian-black pelt crackling with lethal arc discharge. Her yellow eyes glinted with feral intelligence. Behind her, 15 wolves formed a crescent, flanks low, bodies coiled. Every muscle was primed for the kill. "Containment at risk," barked Captain Ives over the comm. "Lieutenant, what do we do?" Arlo's gut twisted. He glanced back at Ether, who lay motionless but alert. "Hold position. I'm going to free it." "No, that'll breach protocol," Dr. Solen began, but Arlo cut her off. "Watch closely. I'm the only one who can handle this." He raced back to the control console, fingers flying over the override panel. Red warning icons flickered. Unauthorized, restricted access. Arlo entered his commander's authorization code. The containment field hissed and dimmed as phased plasma lattices deactivated strand by strand. Ether's eyes flared bright gold, then blue, then white-hot in pure fury. The dragon flexed its talons, cracking the reinforced floor plates. Arlo leapt back as the creature roared. a sound that rattled the entire bay and sent scientists ducking for cover. The viewport cracked under the sonic pressure, but held. Outside, the nebula wolves skidded to a halt at the edge of the pad. Obsidian let out a challenge howl that pierced the alarms. Ether spread its broken coils and rose to its full height, each sinew bulging beneath bronze scales. It lunged forward, the air igniting in its wake as superheated breath scorched the platform's surface. Plasma coils sizzled and collapsed where they remained. Sparks danced across the dragon's wings as it vaulted through the viewport, shattering the glass in a jagged explosion of shards and sonic concussion. Alarms were drowned out by the thunderous beating of wings. Arlo sprinted after Ether, diving through the breach just as the dragon's tail swept back, carving a trench where the drop pad had been. He landed hard on one knee, grit and steel raining through his visor. Obsidian's pack surged forward, but Ether's roar split the air. Flames laced its jaws and it lashed out, incinerating the plasma guns stationed on automatic turrets. The wolves regrouped, sidestepping embers, hackles raised. Arlo sprinted to Ether's side. "This way," he shouted. Together they raced across the cracked Titan-grade decking. Behind them, the Astraeus' launch bay doors sealed with a final whine. The planet's crimson wind tore at their backs, stinging exposed skin around Arlo's visor seal. As they reached the threshold of the wild plains, Arlo glanced back. The wolves had stopped at the bay's edge, watching with grim eyes. Aether paused, wings unfurling to their widest span. The dragon threw its head back and unleashed a final bellow that shook the sky. Obsidian lowered herself, ears flattened, not in defeat but in acknowledgement. Before the wolves could react, Ether took flight. Wind roared as it lifted Arlo off his feet, talons finding purchase in his harness. The world fell away beneath them. The shattered containment bay, the battered drop pad, the howling pack left staring up at a bond forged in the crucible of necessity. High above the plains, Arlo clung to Ether's bronze-scaled hide. The dragon's powerful heart pounded beneath him. Somewhere beyond the horizon lay the luminous rift, and a renegade team of scientists who would now think twice before chaining legends to their curiosity. But for this moment, man and dragon were free, united against any force that sought to cage what could not be contained. Dawn broke over the scarlet plains of Kithria Thrud in a riot of violet and copper light, as Ether's massive wings beat the air, lifting Arlo Hayes clear of the shattered drop pad. Below them, the cobbled remnants of the Astraeus' landing bay lay smoldering. Behind, the nebula wolves, Obsidian at their forefront, raced across the dunes, their electrified fur crackling in protest as each gust from Ether's wings buffeted them back. Arlo pressed his palms against the dragons, warm scales marveling at the raw power humming beneath the bronze plates. Though the Astraeus' automated turrets had opened fire in a last desperate salvo, Ether had warded them off with a torrent of superheated flame and gale force wing beats. Now, free of shackles in station, they flew low over geysers of sulfurous gas, weaving between jagged obsidian pillars that rose like sentinel spires across the desert plain. "Hold tight," Arlo yelled over the roar, sliding his feet into depressions carved into Ether's flanks. The dragon responded with a thunderous roar that harmonized with the sunrise, echoing across the horizon like hope unbound. They touched down at the lip of the luminous rift, where the air shimmered with residual gravitic turbulence. Rocks hovered, in clusters untethered by conventional physics. Arlo recognized this as the same zone that had ensnared Ether days before, a place where the planet's crust had fractured, exposing an ancient network of graviton conduits. Obsidian's howl rose behind them, an unsettling chorus of challenge and curiosity. The wolves slowed to a cautious circle, teeth bared but bodies tense with indecision. Ether folded its wings once, twice, then nudged Arlo with its snout, the dragon's unmistakable invitation to press onward. Together they descended into the rift's maw, boots crunching against crystalline sand that glowed faintly beneath each step. Inside, the tunnels gleamed with phosphorescent mineral veins and drifted motes of bioelectric dust. Gravity undulated in rhythmic pulses. One moment Arlo felt light as a feather, the next as if pressed beneath a mountain. Floating stalactites drifted serenely overhead, casting prismatic shadows on the cavern floor. He stayed close to Ether's flank, trusting the dragon's instincts to guide them through the unpredictable field. Obsidian led her pack into the tunnel entrance, hackles lowered as they adapted to the shifting gravity. Their low growls synchronized with Ether's quiet rumble, a shared cadence that spoke of a fragile truce forming on alien ground. Deep within the labyrinth, they came upon the graviton core, a towering monolith of dark alloy, ensnared by corroded power conduits. Alien runes glowed along its facets, pulsing in time with the cavern's tremors. This ancient engine had held Ether prisoner, and threatened to bind any creature of might in its inexorable grip. Arlo crouched beside the core, pulling his pulse rifle free. He calibrated the weapon's frequency to disrupt the graviton field, and sighted down its barrel. His heart thundered as he squeezed the trigger, a beam of searing energy that struck the monolith with a concussive crack. Sparks arced across its surface, but the runes flared brighter, defying his assault. "Back," Ether growled, nudging Arlo aside just as the core convulsed. Shards of dark metal rained down, each fragment humming with latent force. The cavern quaked, and a wave of microgravity rippled outward, sending loose stones drifting like snow in still air. Arlo staggered to his feet, realizing that half measures wouldn't suffice. He met Ether's burnished gaze and felt an unspoken understanding pass between them. With a roar that shook the tunnel walls, Ether slammed a talon into the monolith's base. The impact released a pulse of raw gravitic energy, and the core shattered in a shower of scintillating fragments. Light and darkness warred in the cavern as the engine's power bled away. Gravity snapped back with a bone-jarring jolt, rooting Arlo in place. The phosphorescent veins dimmed and the runes went silent at last. In the sudden hush, the only sound was the labored breath of a dragon and the cautious panting of a wolf pack, now assembled at Ether's side. Arlo touched the shattered core's fragments gingerly. As the glow faded, he knew they had undone the device that would have enslaved Ether for eternity. Yet the cavern around them quivered with exhausted energy, and every fissure threatened collapse. He looked to Ether, then to Obsidian. In their ragged postures, dragon broken free, wolves tamed by necessity, he saw the fragile promise of unity, that even in the void between worlds, ancient rivals could find a path toward trust. "Let's get out of here," he whispered, sliding, his pulse rifle home. Ether's low rumble answered him, and together they turned back toward the entrance, ready to face whatever new dawn awaited beyond the luminous rift. The moment the graviton core fell silent, the luminous rift seemed to exhale. Crystal shards drifted slowly to the cavern floor, and the phosphorescent veins pulsed one last time before fading into gentle luminescence. Arlo Hayes rubbed grit from his eyes and looked to Ether, who stood poised amid the rubble. One talon still lightly embedded in the fractured core, dust motes floated in its bronze scales like embers, and its bioluminescent glyphs glowed with a soft, steady light. Behind Ether, Obsidian and her pack emerged hesitantly from the tunnel's shadows. Their fur, once bristling with static energy, now hung damp and flattened, and the yellow intelligence in their eyes was tempered by exhaustion. They formed a loose semicircle around Ether, as if acknowledging that the dragon's mighty strength had freed them all from a greater tyranny. Heart pounding, Arlo stepped forward, pulse rifle holstered. He held out a gloved hand, uncertain if this ancient ritual of truce would translate across species. Ether's head lowered in response, nostrils flaring to inhale the scent of wolf, man, and cavern dust. Obsidian took the lead, padding forward, on silent pause until she stood mere feet from the dragon's talon. For a heartbeat, wolf and dragon regarded one another. Then Obsidian's head dipped in a gesture that could have been a bow. One by one, the other wolves followed suit, touching muzzles to Ether's scaly knuckles as if pledging an unspoken oath. Arlo exhaled, nearly in disbelief. "You did this, not for me," he murmured, more to himself than to anyone else. "You did this for her, and for each other." Ether rumbled, a sound woven from ancient power and newfound relief. The dragon shifted its massive wings, brushing Obsidian's flank with a gentle gust that lifted the pack's hackles. At its command, they shuffled closer, their weary bodies brushing scales and talons in a gesture of solidarity. In that silent, Congress Arlo understood something profound. The nebula wolves had not been mindless predators of legend, nor had the dragon been a solitary titan. Both were survivors of a forgotten experiment, bioengineered guardians intended to heal worlds, cast aside when their masters vanished. Bound by shared abandonment, they found kinship where none had thought possible. "Let's head home," Arlo said softly. He gestured toward the cavern entrance where the dawn's first light shimmered against the crystalline walls. Ether dipped its head, and Obsidian led the pack in single file, following their newfound ally. Arlo climbed onto the dragon's back, settling into a leather harness woven with strands of his rope and Obsidian's fur, a symbol of the fragile alliance they'd forged. With a mighty thrust, Ether's wings unfurled, lifting them toward the cavern's mouth. The walls cracked with the strain of flight, sending rainbows of fractured light arcing across the rift. Below, the red plains of Kithria III stretched toward the horizon, waiting to witness the unprecedented union soaring above them. As they climbed into the sky, Arlo glanced down to see the nebula wolves trailing across the dunes, no longer hunters but companions on an uncertain journey. He felt an unfamiliar warmth at his back, the steady beat of Ether's massive heart, the bond that now tethered him to a creature of myth. Beyond the planet's atmosphere lay the Astraeus, its crew no doubt wondering whether Arlo was alive or sane. But he felt a deeper purpose stirring in his chest, a promise that transcended any military order, to protect this alliance, to show humanity that the wild could be more than something to exploit. It could be a partner, a teacher, an extension of our own capacity for wonder. High above the stars, the dragon, the wolves, and the man who believed in legends began their return, heralds of a new era. Where once fear and misunderstanding had ruled, now trust would guide. And in that unthinkable bond between dragon and pack, Arlo saw the first spark of hope for a galaxy long divided from the marvels it once created. The legends had been true, but this unity, was a story no hollow archive had ever told.